Super Senpai Podcast. Welcome to the Super Senpai Podcast. This is a weekly episodic tokusatsu-related podcast where we're talking about fights and tights. I'm Pat.
And I'm Grant.
And this week we've got my friend John, aka Burgersama. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here with us.
You're one of my longest friends on the internet here. Super cool artist. I love your work.
Thank you.
And you're actually the person that told me, like I've mentioned this on previous episodes, but the one that told me, hey, you can watch that stuff subtitled now. And that's
really?
Yeah, you're the one that was like, hey, check this out. This group is doing Kabuto, and I think you're gonna like it. And
wow.
I can blame you for
this is on you,
revival
John.
of interest.
This is on you.
Guilty.
Yep.
It's all my fault. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that. That's going on the resume.
Yeah. It's important.
You're basically a founding member of this show by technicality, right? I mean,
I've always been here in the shadows.
But you're this is really going to be your first foray into Lupinranger versus Patranger, but you've seen Toku stuff already. So, what's your experience been getting into it, and then what you like? Sure.
Yeah, I was kind of like thinking how I would answer this because I'm really like I'm all over the place. Like I just got I'll dip my toe in and really dig something, and then maybe catch up and forget about it and never check up on it again. Like how I got into it was definitely just the original Power Rangers show when I was a kid. Was my very first introduction. Didn't really know what it was back then, just, that it was a show that I liked. And then after that, when I really got into it, was Beautiful Joe.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Beautiful Joe, yeah.
And then I was like, oh man, I remember this. This is amazing. And I just started looking into it then. We had the internet then, so I could actually do that. And I've always been interested. I love the idea. It's just, man, I always drop off shows. It's such a bad habit.
I mean, I don't blame you.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of O's, a lot of 4s, a little bit of Gaim, bits and pieces of Kabuto and some of the other ones. Does the cell phone one count?
Fies?
No. Remember that one where it was the cell phone like people?
Yeah.
That was one.
K7.
Yeah, K7.
Right? Yeah.
A little bit of, what was it, Garo? Yeah. I've seen a bunch of stuff.
K7, I still think about K7, man. That's a good one.
That was
Do you have any experience with that one, Grant?
No, not at all.
It's like rather than like a henshin kind of Toku series, it's about like it's like a boy and his robot, but his robot is a tiny like phone, like a flip phone that can hack into other devices.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's something else, but it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I guess what happened last week?
Well, last week, boy, it's amazing what you can forget in just a few days. Last week, it may be easier to remember who we had on. We had Doc on, and this was the one where we got that fight underground with the pillars. We had all the Poldermans sort of getting together to fight the Lupin Kaiser, and they were like playing chicken with it. They were throwing. That's right. They were throwing Patrangers off the scent, so to speak, and not getting discovered. That was kind of the big.
That's right. Okay.
That was the big element.
And I totally messed up here. But this this is John's first one. A quick recap on what we've seen so far, I guss.
Oh, sure. So you haven't seen anything yet?
Pat briefly explained the
okay.
The the synopsis.
You're in for a ride then, yeah.
It
we got
sounds
2 teams.
incredible.
Yeah, it's really great. I say that, maybe this will be a terrible episode, but so far, basically, it's a group of a thief team and a police team, both of which have the same versus changers, and they have similar ways in which they go about doing their heroics. In a gang of mobster kaijin monsters. They're all chasing these Lupin collection. The Patrangers, the police, are obviously trying to apprehend the thieves, and the thieves are stealing these in order to bring back either friends or loved ones that have been basically killed in these like ice blocks by an ice villain that we haven't really been introduced to yet very much. And other than that, it's been pretty much your standard weekly hijinks with the added dynamic of having 2 full teams with 2 different robots and different attacks and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely a different scale, and the sort of the idea of having a central conflict between the hero teams. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I think in the shortest possible path from here to there. And this past week we didn't really have any big plot reveals, but we did have the Lupin, the Patranger team was about to discover their identities. It was very clear they were on the case. And the Lupin Rangers managed to dissuade them, to keep up the ruse that they are not actually the Rangers when they really are. We all know they are.
That is such a, and I remember thinking this too when Pat told me about it. That is such a cool concept to have like the 2 teams, and the fact that you say that they almost found out who they were like this early. Like, who knows where that stuff's gonna go, man?
Yeah,
I probably will check this one out for 20 episodes and then drop off.
It's definitely different. I think the fun of it. I mean, we've obviously seen, hero stories have been rife with internal conflict for many, many decades, but I think particularly the fact that you have 2 teams with sort of like top billing here. Their names are on the title cards, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that core conflict is buried in it. It's not just, the 6th Ranger shows up and he's kind of a jerk for a while, or we've been mind controlled this episode, or it's a team of 3 and a team of 2 that eventually just kind of become a team of 5 after a few episodes. Like the fact that they have been oppositional from the word go and continue to be oppositional and probably will be for most of the show's run really gives it just a different kind of flair and a different dynamic that's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they keep coming up with new stuff. They've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, always more toys to sell.
Episode 9, huh?
So this week, I think maybe we'll actually get... Maybe we'll actually get to see the ice villain this time, but I really can't call.
Yeah, I'm hesitant because we got all our wishes granted, and now we're in uncharted territory here. I certainly feel like with the removal of the threat of them being found out, we'll probably get more about some other villain for some kind of building tension. So whether it's the ice villain or more about the mobsters, who knows? But I definitely think we need another threat, as opposed to just the reveal, which was the big threat for last couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited. Y'all ready to watch us some Toku?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this thing.
この番組は楽しい時を作るグループ PRT とザ・コミックフィンドとご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
And we're back. This was different. We didn't get the ice dude. We got a hint of him, but it went a totally different direction this time. But definitely still feeling it, guys.
Yeah, very much so. I really enjoyed it, but I'm very curious to hear what John thought, since this was just his baptism of fire in the series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat, why don't you give us a quick rundown of the episode?
Yeah, sure. So this time, we got to see the Ice Gangler briefly in the very beginning, just walking around, chewing on ice, looking totally fitting in, normal citizen. But this leads us to the Lupin Rangers getting a hint of some jewelry designer visiting their town and about to put on her jewelry collection. I guess just like as a museum piece or for purchase. Showing off. I don't know what rich people do. It turns out one of the pieces from her collection is supposedly a Lupin item, so the Lupin Rangers go to investigate and basically confirm that it is, because right as they get there, a Gangler shows up and tries to take it. We get into a quick kerfuffle. We get a nice elevator action sequence. which leads to them rolling out into the bottom floor. The Patrangers show up, responding to a call from a security guard. Fight continues to break out, but meanwhile, Lupin Red whisks the jewelry designer away and basically convinces her to, or at least attempts to convince her to hand over her piece. But she doesn't really want to hand it over to the Ganglers, or she's at least aware of the Ganglers and is aware of the Lupin Rangers, and she doesn't really want to give it up. In fact, at first she thinks that he's working for her sister, who she's estranged from. The Gangler gets away while they're fighting him. Then Lupin Red takes the jewelry designer back to their base, and I guess hears her story, finds out what her deal is, and it's very similar to what Lupin Red's relationship was with his brother. Her sister showed her up, and then Lupin Red's brother showed him up, and then that kind of distance wasn't reparable because he ended up being killed by the Ice Gangler. And so we got a little bit of an emotional connection with Red. They lay a trap. The Gangler falls for the trap, and the Gangler attacks them again while they're talking about handing it over or what's actually important here. And I think she's just like, you know what, it's not really worth the trouble, and I'm gonna go make up with my sister. Lupin Yellow and Lupin Blue are holding off or trying to keep the Gangler at bay. The Patrangers destroy the Gangler supposedly with a low-level super, and it seems like without that piece, they kind of fall into despair because supposedly they can't get their wishes granted if they lose a piece of the collection. We get a quick fight with a golem instead of the named monster this week, and the Pat Kaiser just kind of falls apart in the middle of the fight, which we'll talk about later. Then Lupin Red takes the jewel that he got from the jeweler, and it turns into a new weapon that he uses to defeat the golem. But even though he got this, he comes back to the cafe, and Yellow and Blue are kind of like really, really affected because on their watch, the Gangler got defeated. Whew, there was a lot going on this weekend.
Yeah, a lot. Well, to give you a break from talking, I guess, I'll just say that I really, really enjoyed this one. I think we talked a little bit, at least we brought John up to speed in terms of, while we were watching, that the collection can grant wishes, or so we've been told, which may or may not be the villain's motivation for getting it too, but it's certainly the Lupin Rangers, their reason for doing anything that they do is they're trying to get all the pieces to make a wish. It's never really been specified the mechanics of that, if there are limitations on it or anything. But, because they haven't talked about it too much, we didn't really consider whether they needed all of them or just some of them or whatever. But they are clearly under the impression that they need to get every single one of them, because the destruction of the Gangler by Pat Red at the end, or near the end there, was like devastating for the team. The Lupin Rangers are just like, they're completely shook because they just don't, to them, they're never going to get the people back that they've been doing all this for. So it was pretty heavy. At least I thought. I thought it was the rest of the episode was really good too. But like, wow, what a moment! Especially because the way he fired it and it hit the Gangler, it went completely silent for a few seconds. The explosion almost caught Blue and Yellow in the blast. Like, it was really, really good moment, really powerful. So I liked that a lot.
I guess I'll jump in. I mean, just coming in completely blind. I was really impressed, just, I guess, one, by the action, like the camera work, and just like how complex the fights are, or can be. There's a lot of people fighting at one time, even like when they switch over to the Pat Kaiser?
Yeah.
Like the graphics and the angles there, it's just like, I guess I haven't seen a Super Sentai show in some time, but yeah, just so impressed with what they're able to do now. And then just I guess on the other hand, or the other side of that coin, is the story too, like how you were touching on, just like how it got pretty heavy at the end there. It's a pretty interesting story with also a lot of players that we don't know a lot about. I just can't believe, that this is the new Super Sentai is. I'm really want to know more. It's a shame, like, because this episode seemed to feature the Lupin Rangers more than the Pat Rangers. So I feel like I didn't get to see them a lot. Like, yeah, really like everything I saw.
I think that's a strength of the show, but also, yeah, a bit of a weakness at the same time is it has to go back and forth on who it's focusing on. Not just an individual member of the team, but between two teams.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be more of a Lupin episode? Is it going to be more of a Pat episode? And you don't necessarily know what you're going to get, short of, watching the preview.
Yeah, and I think the focus on the Lupinrangers has been pretty consistent. I mean, we've had some Patranger-focused episodes, and it's been kind of a 60-40 thing, it feels like, so far. I mean, I don't know if it's felt that way for Pat, but, like, the Lupinrangers, I mean, their name is first for a reason, and their plight is more, like, the Patrangers' entire motive is to get the Lupinrangers, but the Lupinrangers have sort of a goal outside of another team, so they feel like where the show typically hangs its hat.
I guess really they're the driving force of the story.
Right, exactly.
Because they have their mission.
Yeah, they did get sort of their emotional backstory front-loaded. And I think we spent maybe like the first 3 episodes with them. And then we're kind of thirsty for some Patranger action.
I don't know if now is a good time to talk about like where the show would be headed. If that's for later, maybe. I don't know.
How dare you bring that up on this show, John? How dare you? No, I'm kidding.
Guess what?
Well, what do you think? What are you feeling?
I could see it being that like they front load with the Lupinrangers, and that's how they start the story. And something could happen to one, some, or all of the Patrangers that maybe some of their loved ones or whatever get frozen, and then they're put in a position, where now are they gonna commit a crime? Are they gonna uphold their duty? But then we would focus on them more than the others, and you wouldn't have to focus on the others as much because we already know a lot about them, and you could just show them briefly instead of, feature. And then maybe by the end, it's like a reluctant team effort, maybe. But I could see them kind of like balancing the story that way, maybe. Because it'd be weird to have like a team that isn't featured as much,
Yeah. And I think that's part of the I guess what people are kind of guessing at, or the audience is kind of guessing at this point. It's like, there are some staples that we know about, just sort of broadly about Super Sentai stuff, and that, okay, there's going to be a giant robot, of course. There's going to be, multiple giant robots at some point, maybe. There's going to be, additional Rangers. Like, how are they going to implement those things that happen later on, right?
Yeah.
I sort of feel like I'm surprised at the way they framed the way Kairi got the scissors. So the scissors is obviously kind of the feature toy for this week. It's basically like an F-117 Nighthawk that has a little baby Nighthawk on the top of it. That also is 2 pairs of scissors that can separate. Sort of like if you ever watched Johnny Quest, the Quest jets could separate like that. Which is very relevant to Toku. Johnny Quest and Johnny Quest and together. Thunderbirds and all that, it all definitely feeds in. Yeah, so that was the big toy, but the sort of the driving force was that this French woman had it as a necklace from her grandfather, and she eventually gives it to Kairi in a scene that I thought was pretty appropriate. She decided to give it up because it wasn't worth her life, because Destra had just fired like 17 missiles at her and she almost got exploded. And she's like, you know what, Kairi, it's yours, my dude, just enjoy. But it was interesting that they had it around her neck, and like Kairi tried to buy it from her and was kind of pursuing her for a while. It was an interesting sort of sub-theme to the episode, and eventually she just gives it up. And I just thought it was an interesting juxtaposition, kind of thematically, because for her, it really wasn't worth her life, and yet for the Lupinrangers, those treasures are worth the lives of others. And I just thought that was an interesting kind of dynamic that we saw, that that they're not just stealing for personal gain, they're stealing because it's important to them to save people. Whereas for other people, eventually they just kind of have a cutoff point. Like, look, it's even with sentimentality attached, like it's not really worth my life. It's just it just looks like a piece of a toy plastic thing on my neck. Like, who cares? So I thought that was interesting.
How dare you? She is a famous jeweler. And you think that she'd think it was plastic around her neck? I think she has a better eye than that.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's kind of an interesting. That's kind of an interesting commentary on jewelry itself, then too, isn't it? Like, because it's only valuable because we say it's valuable, right? Because people.
Yeah, it's just shiny rocks, man. They're all just shiny rocks,
yeah.
Ultimately.
And like, I guess maybe I might have missed why she kept it like that. If it was just because it was valuable, or if it because it was more like the grudge she was holding with her sister. But I mean, either way, it was like, yeah, like you just have it for that reason. One, are you going to die for it? Two, like, come on, like I need it more. Like in very crude manner of speaking, it's like, come on, obviously I need it more than you do.
Yeah. What are you doing to that thing? It's just hanging around your neck. Come on.
Look at that.
Fork it over,
thing.
lady.
Come on. You don't even have the gun it goes with.
You can't even buy it. You can't even buy it at a store.
You even know what it's called, lady? It's not French.
Interesting that we only saw that. I guess that we're running with. We only really saw Destra and the other Gangler, who was a sort of a janitor, but he had these, like, his transformed state had these kind of antlers in a sort of halo above his head, and he had swords. But with Destra, who was the only other Kaijin and Gangler that we saw this week, it's interesting that they returned to him just deploying a golem. To, like, he doesn't get big, he just chucks out a golem, because he's done that in the past once before. So I wasn't sure, we weren't really sure then whether that's just like a thing he did one time or like a thing he can always do, but apparently he can just, like, that's his thing. He's just like, look, I'm not bothering with this. I'm just going to have a rando monster do it. And then that rando monster was apparently powerful enough to defeat the Pat Kaiser, which was pretty interesting.
Well, it was that, but also I think Pat Red, like, upset Good Striker. And so I think Good Striker was like, you know what? Forget it. Like, I don't want to do it.
He did try to shove him back down.
If I remember right, he didn't want to attack the scissors piece because it was like an important thing, I think.
Yeah, right.
Like when he started firing at that, he started freaking out, and then I think they lost focus or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've never seen rarely do you see a Gatai come undone so haphazardly.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we know the Doylean explanation for that is definitely that they had to show off the scissors, so you can't just have the regular toys do it, but it was interesting, in the text.
And then that the Golem is sort of weak enough to have been defeated by an untransformed mech. Like, okay, like...
Or maybe the mech's really just strong.
That's true. The
scissors looked pretty sharp. I'm curious to see.
Could a stone monster?
I assume these will form, because there's two of them, they'll form some sort of arm or arms for one of the Kaisers, because some of the prior things have been weapons. But I guess maybe just be an attack, because it's been the helicopter and the bike so far, right? The other toys that we've gotten.
And then I think, I imagine it's a Lupin one since it's an air vehicle, right? Like
that's true.
Seems to be consistent with ground. The Pat Rangers get ground vehicle upgrades, and then the Lupin Rangers get air vehicles, so... I mean, maybe they'll mix it up, but so far that's what we've seen.
I mean, even if they don't combine with anything, you can still make plenty of toys.
Yeah. Anything we really didn't like about the episode?
Didn't like?
I mean, I couldn't really...
Not particularly for me. There was some good comedy bits, too, like the Lupin Rangers having to share the one eyepiece to look through the window. The bit with Kyrie stealing the security guard's garb to try to trick the French woman. I was quite pleased with it. I don't really have any major complaints. It's another really good episode that really seemed to up the emotional ante. Like we said at the beginning, like without having the reveal of the Lupin Rangers be the hook. Now the hook is, okay, how does the wishing actually work? We assume that they're not really done for, but like now the question is like, okay, how do they solve this problem? This is the new question, so...
And I wanted to make sure I said this on the actual episode. I am a big fan of heart boxers showing up on people in cartoons and television, and I got that. So that's a nice little thing for me.
I didn't even notice the guard had them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Like all the way back to Goof Troop days.
Mm-hmm.
Report to the Goof Troop, and we always stick together. Sorry, any excuse.
That's not getting cut out. You're not. I don't care what you tell me.
That's fine.
After
that's fine.
This. Yeah. Great.
Get to work on the remix, folks.
Yep. About to cue up Power Lines Eye to Eye. You know it's a jam. You know it is.
There it is. Oh, baby.
Are we ready to do final thoughts and head over to Twitter questions?
Sure.
Cool. Let's see what we've got here. So from our good buddy Shushutu, what's the one show that you found yourself rewatching over and over? Obviously this being Toku specific.
Oh, Rats.
I have not seen that series. Is that a rat-based Sentai? Is that what I'm to understand?
Oh no, it's the there's
Ratatoku,
a Japanese
if you will,
adaptation of the live-action Ninja Turtle show, and that's actually.
I thought you were going for Biker Mice from Mars.
Oh yeah, Yeah, it's like one of those like weird mixed things. But serious answer. I actually haven't gone back and watched a whole thing over again since these tend to be pretty long, and I don't know if that's shameful or not. But that's just I haven't done it. But I will say the thing I have watched the most of, just because it's a spectacle, is the first episode of Decade. That is, there's so much going on in that first episode that like it promises so much, and I just love seeing it. Seeing tons of riders die, seeing a world fall apart because of just stuff. It's great. It's just wow.
I know for myself, again, I'm in a similar boat. As soon as I'm done with the Toku, I run off to watch the next one. I don't really slow down and go back and rewatch them, especially due to their length. But I keep returning to Zyuranger. I will just randomly watch episodes sometimes. It is both a Sentai that's basically my favorite, but also at the same time it carries the air of MMPR nostalgia, which is unfair because it's not that, but I really don't care. I still watch it for those things, and I love it. So,
I'm in the same boat. I am a notorious not rewatcher. At least full series, I just can't do it. Not often, but I'll rewatch certain episodes or scenes or clips. So for that, and these are what was it called? Forever Red, the Power Rangers episode.
Yeah.
That is just like if I want to watch a Power Rangers thing, that's probably the one I'm gonna watch.
That's a great episode.
Or gosh, and I feel bad because I don't remember the show name or the character's name, but the Dog Ranger from the Space Ranger show where he kills like the 100 dudes and they have the counter on the screen.
Oh yeah.
Which one is that?
He was it SPD? I don't know. I don't remember the Japanese name.
Which would be a Deca Ranger.
Deca
Ranger.
Yeah. I watched the crap out of that in college, like almost every day for a while.
So one of those things.
Just the cool action scenes. I'll watch those over and over and over. But yeah, just rewatching a whole series. Man, I can't even think of one I've actually done it for.
I know that some people do it. It's hard to do. Like it's a lot of content to get through again.
Yeah.
Especially when there's more out there.
Exactly.
There's always something else. But no, that was a good question, Shushu. Thanks. This one comes to us from a frequent buddy, Behalite Bebop. Any scenes in Toku that really moved you to tears? And if so, what was the best one? Whew. Oof. I have multiple answers to this, so I guess I can lead. Yeah, for me, crying during Toku is part of the experience for me. So, like, it's very cathartic. I have multiple examples, but I think one that I haven't talked much about is the first more modern Ultraman that I watched was Ultraman X a couple years ago. And there's an episode around the midpoint, maybe 15, 16, 17, that focuses on their sort of like grizzled, older captain character on the team. And it's about him and his daughter's wedding. And I was done for. That episode annihilated me. So, yeah, that was a good one. Shout out to Ultraman X for being really good.
Oh, man, I can't think of one. I'm sure it's happened. It's just, man, I can't think of one that sticks out.
I think any emotional reaction I think is fine here. I personally I can go if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't necessarily I've cried at two things in media, both of them anime related. One was Grave of the Fireflies because of course, and then the other one was actually Devilman Crybaby because
right.
I am just of course.
Oh wait, can it be anything?
No, I'm just gonna say that I haven't had that experience with Toku. If you want, that's fine. We'll get there.
I at least want to say, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm a tough guy who doesn't cry. I cry
for this whole
at
episode,
everything. So let's just put that out there. It's not that I'm too tough. It's just I can't remember.
But with regards to Toku, I would say the most emotional thing for me, maybe. I'm going to say it's probably stuff that happened towards the end of Drive, like just how much some characters you want to either, like, how much I connected to some of the characters at the end of Drive, and how much I wanted things to just be okay for some of them, and that just the way things were set up, it was just impossible, and it just wasn't going to happen. And also, I guess some of the self-sacrifice that goes into it. Because I'm a big fan of, like, you know, Enemy and me and my enemy teaming up against a mutual enemy that's whatever, not necessarily the greater good, but just the world's gonna end. One of us has to stay here, like one of those things. Like, so I did get that like gut wrenching thing. I just wanted things to be fine, but that's just not how it works. But it tends to be, I think, towards the end of like a Rider series that I get to that point. So I don't. I feel like I have to tread lightly here.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
If I had to say anything Sentai related, and I guess it's loosely related. It's not a show, but the end of Wonderful 101. I really like that a lot. Different types of tears throughout the whole ending.
That's true. Mm-hmm. My hands really hurt mashing that button.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. The best mashing there ever was, though.
It's true. That is the best button mashing scene I've ever. The best QuickTime event ever, I think.
Yeah, for real.
Grant, if you haven't experienced this, Wonderful 101 is basically like a Super Sentai series on the Wii U.
Yeah, it's like the series you play. It's really good.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe I should check that out. All right, so our last question of the night comes to us from Kay Miralath. So Kay asks, so obviously Toku has a lot of big dramatic moments that are just excuses to introduce a new toy. Sometimes it's easy to roll with, sometimes it really breaks everything. What are your most and least favorite examples of this kind of thing? And that's a big question. That's a big one.
It is.
Yeah. Anytime we get most and least and stuff like this, my usual rule of thumb is like, this may not be the most or the least, but it's what came to mind. So
I have one that actually came to mind.
Sure. Talk about it.
Oh man, I wish I could remember the name of the series. It was one of the anniversary ones recently with all the pirates.
Oh, Go Kiger.
And they had the toys, right? Like they had the actual toys that they would use for like attacks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about Gokaiger here?
Yeah. I
yes.
think so.
Yeah. Wasn't that the gimmick? Like they had
the Ranger keys.
Yeah, the Ranger keys that were essentially like little figurines of the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's pretty ridiculous. And at least to me seemed like, well, maybe not a way to just make a bunch of merch to sell, but it's like, this is the anniversary show. I feel like they weren't even trying to be sneaky about it. It's just like, yeah, this is what it is. We're going to be real upfront about it. But who cares? Like, you love that crap. You're going to buy it. And if you're not, you're going to watch it. Like, I don't know. For me, I feel like maybe just because I haven't seen a bunch of them, I feel like it's hard to find a worst one. I mean, they've been at this for a while. They know how to integrate it well enough.
Yeah.
But I can't think of one that would have broken the show. But
I am generally a fan of, I'm fine with the toyetic elements. Usually the more gaudy, the better these days. But I do enjoy the original Ultraman in 66 and stuff like that, where very clearly the toys were the vehicles, which, like, they are obviously toys that they sell, and they still sell to this day. But the toyetic elements weren't quite so integrated to the person. Like, it wasn't like someone's walking around literally, like, wearing a toy that might still have, like, the price tag on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were just more like, well, we're a crazy sci-fi organization with some crazy sci-fi vehicles. And it felt a little... I mean, that was still obviously the intent. The distance was just that extra degree, I think, that helped keep it from sort of, which I'm fine with what they do now, but it's very obviously like super toyetic. The thing that I really don't like cell phones as a gimmick. Something about the fact that already is a small object that I use and has gimmicky things on it. I think that kind of removes some of the luster of it. Like seeing a flip phone, or like I just started Build and like seeing him just have a phone, just, I don't know, it doesn't do anything for me. I want like a giant plastic wrist changer with dials and things that is clearly a toy, but is not something that like I have. Like I don't have a giant like wrist gizmo or whatever, so it makes
that's what his belt is for. I think in that case, I think that's exactly what you were looking for, right?
Sure, exactly. But just like whenever a phone comes out, I'm just like, like I don't know. I don't like the idea of their superpowers being like an app. I guess it just doesn't do much for me.
I feel like the novelty of that has worn off.
Sure,
because before it was like, oh, phones are like, this new thing that everyone's just starting to have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely agree. Like, it's a real world object. Like, it's not exciting.
Right.
Not that a watch is, but like, you don't use a watch to summon anything.
Right.
I'm sorry. Have you heard of the Apple Watch? Because I can get an Uber. I can't get an Uber. There's no Ubers here.
No one has an Apple Watch. And it looks lame anyway. Like, it doesn't, it doesn't look uncomfortable to wear. Like, come on. I want to bang that thing on the side of the door when I walk through it.
And that's your transformation sequence?
Henshin. Put it on my bill.
I'm okay. I don't know if this is like a crime or not to admit to this, but I don't like the big plastic swords as much. I'm not a fan. Like, I like when it's like not this has come up in previous episodes, but I like when it's not a sword. Anything that's not a sword is my favorite thing. So when it shows up and it's like even builds like sword, it's like a freaking drill blade. That's great. I like that.
Yeah.
But when it's like, or
what about the orange slice sword?
It has to be I guess it's appropriate because it's like armor. Like,
it's pretty clever, right?
Yeah, it's part of it. It's part of the armor aesthetic, Something like, maybe I'm going too hard on this, but I'm thinking about like Decade's gun and also sword that was sticking out of his little booklet. I don't know if that's, but that sword did not look. That sword looked like you could break that thing.
Yeah, I know
accidentally.
I think I know what you mean. Like, I've seen a couple of swords where it's just like that. That actually looks like a toy. Like, I don't buy that doing any damage.
So if you're gonna have like a big sword thing, make it kind of interesting, or make it something else, like a spear, a staff. I'm down with, or just straight up get down and dirty and beat them down with your fists, which is, I think, why I liked the introduction of Birth in O's, and also Meteor in 4 is just going full Bruce Lee with the.
I think that's one of O's greatest strengths is that the coin slot gimmick has I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like, it's not something that I'm experiencing, so it doesn't actually have any weight, but there's almost a tactile sensation to it, just because like putting a coin in a slot is something that you've done a lot, or at least I've done a lot, like putting coins and things. So like knowing what the character's feeling in that sense, like, is really evocative, and it just like, I don't know, it works really well. All the coin gimmick stuff works.
I was gonna say, like, I kinda, and not really, but if any part of the design of the costume or, device or gadget or anything, if they have to slow down for even a second to use it or activate it or plug it in or whatever, I think it's really lame. Like, and
Heresy. Heresy.
Like, if you just, because then I start thinking like, oh, if I was doing that, I'd be screwing it up hard. Like, just imagine like trying to fumble one of the switches into the force belt.
That's the fantasy, John.
No,
they
but
get it right every time. It's like putting a USB in a slot. It just works for them. That's their superpower.
Yeah, that was the most unbelievable thing about Double, I think, is that he actually inserted it in correctly each time, right?
Like
twice an episode at least.
I don't buy it. You're telling me we had USB-C in 2009? Get out of my face. That was like almost 10 years ago. No,
there's fiction, ridiculous. There's science fiction, and there's fantasy. And this is stepped into fantasy.
Like, imagine if they had to put together a little Lego set real quick.
Yeah.
But they could speed that up and make it look cool. Damn it.
I'm ready for Kamen Rider Brick, man. Make that happen. Let's do this.
Minecraft.
Then we can have a Lego movie that's Kamen Rider. Like, come on, man. Like, game over. Just take my bank account info.
Wait, who has the Kamen Rider license? Because I know there's a company in Japan that does. I think it might be Nanoblocks.
Really?
I think it is. Yeah. Not Mega Block. Not Mega Blocks.
No. Nanoblocks are so itty bitty.
Yeah, they are. Oh boy.
Well, guys, that was all of our questions for this week. John, thanks so much for being on the pod with us. It was great having you here.
Thank you for having me. It was great. Yeah, I'm probably going to watch like all 8 of those episodes.
Yeah. And then you're in for a ride, my friend.
Then cut off and probably drop right there.
Who knows? I might not cut off. This actually, like,
all right.
Doesn't seem Monster of the Week.
Yeah, I think, no, all right, sorry. I think Toku's sort of gotten past that a little bit. Like, it is, but it isn't. Yeah. Let the folks know where they can follow you. Twitter, Instagram.
Right. If you want to see drawings, at Warkbench, WARKBENCH. If you want to see just a bunch of crap, at Burgersama. Not going to spell it.
Burgersama. It should be obvious. Right on.
You'll know you got there.
Right. Thanks for tuning in to the Super Senpai Podcast. We'll notice you again next time.
Super Senpai Podcast.